Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about visioning, which is a pretty fundamental part of developing a project. It touches on options appraisals as well, because there's a certain amount of how do you arrive at a vision. But basically, the real importance of the vision is that it's almost your strapline, your mission statement. It's the sort of dream, if that's not too cheesy, which is going to underpin the project. Is ultimately the aim that you're going to hold before you, and which is going to get you through the next however many years it takes to get through your project so that you get the outcome that you need. So a vision, as I say, it sounds quite sort of blue sky and very sort of cheesy in some ways, but actually it's a very, very practical part of your project. What is a vision? Is it a business plan? No, it underpins your business plan, but it's not the nuts and bolts of how you will test the viability of what you want to do with your building. Is it the project itself? Well, in a way, it underpins your project, but it's not all of the technical parts of your project itself. Is it the budget? Well, you won't be able to achieve your budget without your vision without a pretty strong and considered budget. Is it the project execution plan? Again, that's the technical way of how you're going to achieve your vision. Does it belong to one person? Well, as we'll look at this afternoon, certainly not. It's got to be a vision that everyone buys into. Is this an impossible dream? Well, it needs to be ambitious up to a point, but should it be impossible? No. Does it mean something in everyday life? I think this is a really important point, because actually the right vision should mean something in everyday life. Is it your mission statement? In a way, it's got a lot in common with that. And is it your strapline, your sort of advertising slogan? In a way, yes, it's going to be the couple of sentences that if someone says to you, what is your project going to achieve? This is what you can share, and they will get it straight away that this is what your project is aiming at. So in a nutshell, very ambitious, your vision is effectively everything about what you want to do, not the technical side of how you're going to achieve it, but on the day you open, the end of your capital phase, this is what you want your project to look like. So although I'm not going to talk about options appraisals today, there is a little bit of synergy between the two, because as you move towards establishing your vision, clearly you've got to have a level of reality about it. It's got to be based in something that ultimately you can see as achievable for your project. At its barest bones, the ingredients of the vision, you have a building that you're starting with, a building that you want to see in viable reuse. That building sits in a unique location, which poses challenges and opportunities. It has its own history, a history of ownership, a history of what it's been used for before. It sits in a particular community, which will, again, be unique. There'll be ambitions and feelings amongst the local community about what they want to see happen with this building. And of course, it's got to be about the future. This isn't about what the building has done in the past. It's an aim to come up with a sustainable and an ambitious vision for what this building could be in the future and what it could offer in the future. So breaking down those ingredients bit by bit, does the building itself suggest its own future? Sometimes it can't be used for what it was originally built for, though it's always a good starting place with an historic building. It can also be determined by the condition it's in. A building in very poor condition, on the downside, needs more money spending on it, but equally might present opportunities for a kind of quite imaginative, adaptive reuse. Is there anything that has to be ruled out? Some historic buildings simply cannot perform certain modern functions, and it's best to be realistic about that. And as I say, what was it built for? Not a bad starting point. Though often with historic buildings, of course, the reason they become redundant is because the use they were built for no longer applies. So that's just a quick snapshot of some of the aspects of a building that you might want to consider when you're working your way towards this overarching vision that will determine the development and shape of your project. As a location, could a visitor attraction work? Many historic buildings ultimately become visitor attractions, although it's by no means the only outcome for them. There could be other opportunities, a lack of employment. Is there any new employment coming in? Are there any new opportunities or external funding that might suggest new uses? What makes the location unique, and what opportunities does it offer? Is there a need for community or office space? What's actually needed in that location? And I put here, can you offer parking? It sounds so mundane. Again, this is the kind of thing that your options appraisal will look at in more depth, but it's sort of putting all these into the mix in order to establish a vision for what you can do with this building. The history of the building, of course, with historic buildings, is extremely significant. You might have a link with a famous person. At any rate, even if it's not something of that magnitude, there will be something special and unique about this building that could easily feed into your vision for what it could achieve in the future. Even if it doesn't play a part in national or international history, certainly to its local community, it will have meaning and resonance that will influence what it could potentially do. The community are extremely significant in establishing your vision. Who loves it? The answer will probably be plenty of people. If it's an old building, if it's been part of people's landscape, they will inevitably have feelings towards it. How do local people feel about it? Could it be a catalyst, perhaps, for the future, for changes in that area for the better? What are the needs of local people? Going back to possibly a community space or some kind of hub they might require. How could it contribute towards local regeneration? And importantly, how can communities play a part in its future? Not only by consultation, but being tied into the vision as partners in the sustainability of the building. And of course, one of the most important elements of your vision is you're always looking to the future. The idea is that you're taking a building into a sustainable use where it has a firm future and won't end up becoming dilapidated again. So you have to think about how your area is changing. Can the building be an agent of change? Can it house some of those potential changes? Can you build some flexibility into your vision so it's not completely built on the here and now, but accommodates some of those changes in the future? Can the need to respond and react to the external and wider world and community context be built in to your vision? And then you put it all together. A vision has to be signed up to and embraced by a large amount of people. If it is just one person's vision competing with other visions for a building, there's going to be inevitable tension going forwards. There's enough discussion and creative tension in a project in any case without having that very firm starting point of a vision. So in terms of who is going to be involved in putting it all together, clearly the trustees, the governance organisation behind the project. Stakeholders, very general term, we kind of know what it means, but within that we mean the local community, a community of interest, a great expression, meaning essentially not necessarily those people who live next door to your building, but who have an interest in what the end use is going to be, or in the heritage of that particular site. It could be that you're aiming at families, at older people, or visitors, as in sort of tourists. Of course, you have your statutory consultees, and you really do need these people to have bought into your vision, because they too can work practically with you towards delivering that vision, be it Historic England, Historic Scotland, CADU, or the Department of the Environment in Northern Ireland. Of course, your local council and planning authority have the power to be great allies in a project, so again, bring them on board. They will have very specialist knowledge of the history of a site and can be a real ally in developing your vision. Your funders shouldn't dictate the vision, but at the same time, again, there might be a source of expertise and advice that will help you shape what that vision is. And of course, your end users, if you know who they're going to be, involving them in your vision as well, gives you the best possible chance of getting everyone signed up. So even if there are disagreements and it's hard work getting to that vision, everyone has that same dream effectively before their eyes, and you know you're all working towards the same end point. And what have you got? This is a very generic vision for XYZ somewhere. I've picked on it being in the northwest in Manchester. Can't imagine why. But essentially, what you're talking about is a vision is something ambitious. So our vision is to create the finest community hub, performance venue, cafe, museum, etc. It's to set yourself in context in your location. It's to reference the community, so building on the heritage of Manchester and the resilience of its local communities. You're including those communities in your vision. You're stating that this is a building that could only happen where your building is and will refer to its context. Open to all and looking forwards in all its activity. Again, trying to build in that kind of future-proofing, that this is a very cheesy, but it's a journey. So you're starting at one point, but the idea is that your project evolves and changes. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a very, very ambitious vision and having a very overarching vision for reasons which I'll come to shortly. So I think with your vision, there are many different kinds of words for it. I think you need to be ambitious because you want to change the status quo, because whatever happened to your site before hasn't worked ultimately, and you want to take it from that place to somewhere else. But you do want to be realistic, hence referencing an options appraisal. There is no point putting everyone through the misery of having a completely unachievable vision and setting yourself up to fail. You need it to be timeless. It can't just be something that will work as long as you get it done in 2 years' time and then again is set up to fail. It needs to have be driven by its outcomes. So your vision won't say, we intend to do a 3-year project based on HLF funding with a business plan and da-da-da. That's the processes, that's not the vision you're looking forward to. It needs to be flexible as well. You do revisit a vision, and there's nothing wrong with that. Quite often in projects, I've encouraged trustees, even just before the construction phase, to go back and revisit their vision and check they're all still signed up to it. It's the source, and this is where it comes into its practical use. It's the source of all your project documentation. So everything about your project, about your processes, is built and rests on that vision. So even when you look at things as practical as your budget and your programme, they should all feed back to that vision and what you're trying to do. I think a good tip of a vision that works, and speaking from experience in a few delivery phases, is every day when I go into the office as project manager on various projects, is to stop and ask myself in all my activities, is what I'm doing contributing towards delivering the vision? And if the answer is no, then really you shouldn't be doing it. Everything you're doing is feeding into that vision and driving towards that outcome for your project.